Panthers 49ers. You know, it's kind of crazy, right? You know, I'm from North Carolina. I know I've said this 1,000 times, but this is a really funny conversation I have with a lot of my friends and family. You know, Carolina, pretty poverty franchise, if you really think about it, since the departure of the Richardson family, who previously owned the team. And David Tepper's the new owner. He's been pretty abysmal so far in his tenure in Carolina. And just the whole regime with the Richardson family and Cam Newton, Luke Kuechly, ever since that regime left, this franchise has been a laughingstock. And I recalled last week saying the Carolina Panthers got a primetime game. And obviously when they planned the schedule previously, nobody thought the Panthers were going to be actually pretty decent this year. So the Panthers turned out to be pretty decent this year. They're going up against the 49ers. And I was telling a lot of people around where I'm from, and I was like, y'all, this could actually be a pretty good game. Like, this game can actually be pretty exciting. I was 100% wrong. Like, not even close to being right. This game was absolutely abysmal to watch. Because between Bryce Young and Brock Purdy, they both were having what millennials in today's age like to say a mid-off. Both of them was literally playing like, which quarterback is going to play worse today? Is it going to be Bryce Young or is it going to be Brock Purdy? But the main topic I really took away from this game from Carolina's point of view is more about Bryce Young. But let's just discuss the 49ers real quick. When I watched this game, I watched Brock Purdy. I know I haven't discussed much Brock Purdy and the Niners, you know, for the multitude of covering my YouTube channel. I discussed Brock Purdy when he got paid his money. But I've never been a huge fan of Brock Purdy. I really have always thought, and you might can attest to this from me watching Nick Wright so much. Me and him just pretty much see eye to eye when it comes to this conversation. Brock Purdy, I've always felt like is more of a benefit of having Kyle Shanahan as his coach. And another testament to that you could take is kind of like, well, Jayden, yeah, Kyle Shanahan is arguably one of the best offensive geniuses we have in the NFL. Any quarterback would be able to benefit from having him as your coordinator. But when you really look at Brock Purdy, he has a lot of deficiencies. And my main takeaway when watching this game and just seeing the amount of mistakes that Brock Purdy was making, I was kind of saying to myself, Brock Purdy getting paid $50 million proves to be absolutely insane. It is an absolute crime. It's absolute robbery what he's done to the San Francisco 49ers. And this is not about to be a Brock Purdy hate train, but I'm just bringing this up just from the context of how well Mac Jones has looked since he's been put in for Brock Purdy in the wake of Brock Purdy's injuries. You know, Brock Purdy's been injured with turf toe and the shoulder and everything else. And Mac Jones has looked like the Mac Jones who went to the Pro Bowl under not Sean McDermott, but Mike McDaniel. Well, not Mike McDaniel. I got the name mixed up at the top of my head, but the Patriots' current offensive coordinator. That is the Mac Jones we are seeing under Kyle Shanahan. But when we looked at Brock Purdy on Monday night, he does not throw a good football, velocity-wise. He's always been pretty accurate. He has great touch, but he has no zip on his football. He has no velocity, and we saw that on Monday because every single interception that Brock Purdy threw, outside of maybe the last one, but the first two that he threw, they were undercut by the cornerbacks because he has no zip on his ball. All he has is nice touch. And when you throw a ball like that, in the case of Brock Purdy, you got to make sure you miss. You got to make sure you at least miss by overthrowing it. You cannot underthrow your receiver. So when he threw that post route, that Jackson undercut, you got to leave that ball over the top of the receiver's head. And the same thing with the one that J.C. Horn picked off. You got to make sure the ball's way ahead of the receiver. If not, it is going to get undercut. And that is what happened with Brock Purdy. And as I previously stated, it feels like Brock Purdy, if he was in any other system, maybe outside of Sean McVay in Los Angeles, because Sean McVay has always been considered just as much of an offensive genius as Kyle Shanahan. They feel like they are the modern day Walshes. Like, they are great at West Coast offense. But it feels like Brock Purdy would be a bottom tier quarterback. And that is no slight against Brock Purdy, because we have to be honest. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. He was the last overall pick in the NFL draft for a reason. It is because he has deficiencies at the quarterback position that isn't considered, what's the word I want to use? Efficient or compatible with what most GMs, coaches, and organizations look for in their franchise quarterback. He is short. He's not very athletic. He's not very efficient when he's with his legs. And he doesn't have a big arm. And he does not have a strong arm. All of those qualities, when you ask a GM when they're going to the NFL draft looking for their franchise quarterback, they're looking for all four of those things. And if you bring up the name Brock Purdy to them, they are going to look at you and laugh in your face. But Mac Jones so far has looked like the better quarterback. And we know the backstory of Kyle Shanahan really being in love with Mac Jones. Again, as I previously stated, Mac Jones had a lot of success with the New England Patriots. And please, let me look up the Patriots offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. Jesus, Mike McDaniel, Josh McDaniels. But Josh McDaniel, under Josh McDaniels, Mac Jones had success in New England. And he made the Pro Bowl. So we saw Mac Jones is pretty good at the quarterback position. And Kyle Shanahan was wanting Mac Jones coming out of the draft the year they drafted Trey Lance. And we've seen how well Mac Jones has been able to play. At one point during the game, I was sitting there saying, is Kyle Shanahan probably going to bring out Mac Jones? Because those 3 interceptions were abysmal. If it wasn't for Bryce Young playing as equally worse as Brock Purdy in that game, the 49ers would have got absolutely slaughtered. Like, absolutely slaughtered. But I really got to give credit, and here's another takeaway I really thought about. John Lynch is just a phenomenal, and I mean phenomenal, general manager. The amount of talent, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, really popped off on the screen on Monday night. The amount of injuries that they've had, and I keep bringing this up. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Michael Williams, your first-round draft pick in the 2025 draft, all of them are hurt. Your 2 elite All-Pros, potentially future Hall of Fame players, are out for the season. They are up in the press box. They showed them in the telecast multiple times. In some way, somehow, the 49ers are able to win games. They are 8-4. I've said this a million times, multiple times so far in my podcast. I'm sitting here like, if this was any other team, they would be sinking and trying to survive when it pertains to trying to make a playoff push. That's not the 49ers. They are 4 games above 500 through 12 weeks, 12 games into the season. That is phenomenal, and that has to do a lot with the GM, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and their ability to make and establish teams. Their team building skills are superior. I tell any GM so far in the league, take a page out of John Lynch's book. Like, players defensively were popping off the screen. That backup linebacker who's in for Fred Warner right now, he was flying everywhere across the line of scrimmage. Everybody, every GM, take a page out of John Lynch's book when it comes to team building. He's absolutely phenomenal. And lastly, I want to give credit to Christian McCaffrey. He's just an absolute stud. We saw right after Brock Purdy threw his 3rd interception, because, the Niners went down first drive easily with Christian McCaffrey. He was the workhorse and just went down and scored. And it feels like Kyle Shanahan was just trying to open the playbook just a little bit because you felt comfortable. You got a lead. Bryce Young, they look like they're not going to have a good time on offense. He was really trying to open up the playbook just a little bit. But Christian McCaffrey is just a workhorse. He's a stud. He's a future Hall of Famer. And at one point, like I said, was wanting to the point I was trying to get to before I went on a little soliloquy there. When Brock Purdy threw his 3rd interception, I felt like Kyle Shanahan pretty much said, you know what, Brock Purdy, bump this. You're going to give the ball to Christian McCaffrey. He is going to go win us this ball game. My Lord, did he not. Christian McCaffrey was phenomenal. Statistically, the other night, I don't know why I didn't have the box score up while I was sitting here talking about this game. But statistically, Christian McCaffrey was phenomenal. Christian McCaffrey, he averaged 3.7 yards a carry, which was nothing to really talk about, but he had a touchdown, and in the passing game, he had 53 yards. So altogether, he had almost 170 yards worth of scrimmage plays, and he got a touchdown and was able to lead his team to a very, very convincing win. Now let's go ahead and flip the script to a big portion and my main point of this game and my main takeaway, just because I can really resonate with this. Again, like I said, because I'm from Carolina, I root for the Carolina Panthers. I want them to be good, and this was a big game for them. You never have primetime games, and it was kind of like, yeah, we're 6-5 for a reason. Let's go show the world why everyone should take us serious and why we should be kind of legit. But they dropped the ball on this, and it has to do a lot with maybe the fact that Carolina probably just wasn't ready for the moment. It wasn't only Bryce Young, it was also Dave Canales. And I bring up Dave Canales because his offensive approach on Monday night was questionable in every single facet you can really think about. Between Rico Dowdle had averaged 6.3 yards a carry. Chuba Hubbard averaged 5.3 yards a carry. And between the two, they only carried the ball 9 times. If you're any other coach in the league and you have a quarterback who is in his 3rd year, he's been questionable his whole career, the one thing you're going to want to do is establish him an efficient run game. And if you're looking at that stat sheet in the middle of the game, like, dude, with both my backs, I'm averaging over 5 yards carry. How about let's help my young quarterback out? Just run the ball. I feel like whatever Dave Canales saw on film, maybe they saw it throughout the week leading up to the game that the Niners were pretty good at stopping the run and they're pretty weak on the back end, which is technically true. But sometimes my problems with coach is their inability to adapt. They always want to stick to the game plan. Wake up, Dave Canales. Read the game. Understand how the game is going currently. Adapt. You were having success in the run game. Who cares what you saw on film that week? It's always what's happening during the game. What is happening in the context of the ball game so far? You were having success running the football. How about, and this game was relatively close for the most part. Even when the one pick that Bryce Young threw on the 1 yard line, you ran play action on the 1 yard line on 1st down. Give the ball to Rico Dowdle, one of the best running backs in the league this year. I feel like Dave Canales was really just trying to, he really was too smart for his own good. He was just being way too smart for his own good. And I really think he really, I keep saying really, but he honestly let Bryce Young down in this game. Again, Bryce Young wasn't good himself, and we're fixing to jump into him. But Dave Canales, it starts there. It always starts with the head coach. What type of game plan are you establishing for your quarterback? And for Bryce Young, having Bryce Young in that game drop back 29 times is insane. If you go back and watch how the Panthers played the Dallas Cowboys, that's the recipe that Dave Canales should have had. Bryce Young threw the ball like 20 times, and Rico Dowdle had like 40 touches. That's what should have happened. But it's time to ultimately get into the honest conversation when it comes to Bryce Young. And it was our biggest takeaway. We saw the type of performance that Bryce Young was able to put up against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, historically, Bryce Young has a lot of success against the Atlanta Falcons. But he is going on to year 3. The Carolina Panthers gave up a lot of capital to trade up in the 2023 draft and draft Bryce Young with the 1st overall pick. And that decision can set back a lot of franchises. But it seems like this year, Carolina has been able to hit on a lot of draft picks, and they really had a good team building process this year. But it's time to have an honest conversation about Bryce Young. And a lot of people are putting into question about Carolina possibly picking up that fifth-year option. This year alone, Bryce Young's first couple of years hasn't been great. First year, he was absolutely awful. Last year, you saw signs of life under Dave Canales. And this year, it's been a mixed bag. More bad than good. But it was signs of life. And you were really hoping in this game, live television, everybody watching, that Bryce Young would take the next step. And man, did he take a huge step backwards. Bryce Young was awful. That pick that he threw at the goal line was absolutely atrocious. I don't know what he was looking at, but it felt like Bryce Young was seeing stars all night. Bryce Young was 18 for 29, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Now, the one ball that he threw to Tedoroy McMillan, it was a bomb. It was a great ball. Bryce Young throws an accurate football. That is not the problem with Bryce Young. The problem with Bryce Young is his efficiency to play consistent. And Bryce Young ended the game with a quarterback rating of 13 and a passer rating of 60. And I talk about Bryce Young because it's hard not to do this, but we got to compare him to the quarterback that was previously there for the Carolina Panthers. And I'm talking about the guy, Cam Newton. Cam Newton was someone who revolutionized the Panthers franchise. He was the Carolina Panthers. That is the type of chokehold he had on the city of Charlotte and the Panthers organization and franchise. He won an MVP. He took him to the Super Bowl. Granted, his legacy is kind of tainted because a lot of people associate Cam Newton to the fumble that he had and not picking it up in the Super Bowl. But for the majority, Panthers fans beloved Cam Newton. Beloved him. I believe they would do anything. Carolina fans would do anything to have those type of 2015 vibes back. Prime Cam Newton. And Bryce Young does not come close to that. He doesn't have the personality that Cam Newton has. He doesn't have the physical attributes that Cam Newton has. And obviously, he does not have the talent. Nowhere near it. Cam Newton won a Heisman. I think Bryce Young won a Heisman too. I may be wrong. I don't know 100% sure, but we know Cam Newton won a Heisman. And he was super talented, and he was the number 1 overall pick, and he changed the franchise forever. And it's really unfortunate we have to compare Bryce Young to that, but it's the only logical way to do it because the Panthers are desperate to find the next guy. And trust me, it is so hard to find a quarterback. And that's why, people are questioning picking up his 5th-year option. Me personally, if I'm the Panthers, I would do it because Bryce Young has shown shades of good. That one throw again that he threw to Tedoroy McMillan, that's a good ball. And there's a multitude of plays that he had last week against the Falcons. Dang, Bryce Young can play in this league. But we got to get that more consistently. We can't have a game where you throw for almost 500 yards, and then in the very next game, you look like you don't even deserve to be in the league. Cannot have it. Not with the way the season was going, and if you were winning the expectations of this game, if you win, you're going to be suited for a playoff spot. When's the last time the Panthers been to the playoffs? I cannot even remember. Was it 2019? Maybe. I think. It might have been the last time Cam Newton was the quarterback. But Bryce Young overall, he showed signs of potential, but he really has to figure it out fast. One thing in this league that we've noticed, it's happened so far with Anthony Richardson. And if I remember correctly, was he part of that same draft class? No, I don't think he was in that draft class. I think he was in Drake May's. Was he in Drake May's draft class? No, I think Anthony Richardson was in Bryce Young's draft class. But anyways, we've seen what the Colts have did with Anthony Richardson. They have pretty much punted on him even being their franchise quarterback. Just already given up. So it's possible. Teams will do it. Same thing happened over there in Tennessee with Will Levis. They will punt on their quarterback. Bryce Young has to get it together fast. And just really unfortunate because he was very successful at Alabama. And I think he has the tools to be great, but we just got to see it more consistently.